So you recently just had a birthday, and every time I have a birthday, it gives me time to take pause and think back about things about the current generation that just drive me nuts. I think it's part of that whole getting older, the get off my lawn mentality.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, like, what are some things that come to mind that drive you nuts?
The internet as just a thing in general. I have a phrase I seem to use almost every day of my life these days. It's the internet ruined everything.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, right down to even this here.
Yeah, basically, it turned us, unassuming Hapa boys into attention whores online.
Sure.
But
yeah, it does seem like there were just so many instances where things were just easier socially before we had so much connectivity, if that makes sense. But perfect example being like all those list websites, they always pop up, the clickbait crap.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like it's formulating an opinion for you. And I think that that's my number one issue with internet nowadays is that people use it to determine their own personality without allowing their personality to dictate what they look at on the internet.
Yeah, I agree. Recently I've taken issue with content services like Netflix. I mean, it's in the same vein, I guess, as like a cracked website or something that serves up, top 10 lists or random factoids. It's serving up information that it is deeming relevant to you, and you're just kind of eating it up.
Right. It's telling you these are the 10 movies you need to watch because they're popular.
Yes.
And I guess that's really what it's done is it's made it easier to fit in. And I think that that's such a critical part of finding yourself is actually fitting in on your own, finding it without having to chase something saying this is how you fit in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my number one issue with the way that works now, where everyone can talk about what the number one show is on TV. People can go worship at the Church of Star Wars now because everyone loves Star Wars. The internet says so. And it's proven, you go out in public now and everybody's wearing Star Wars stuff.
That's what bothers me about it. Is it's almost, I mean, it's not entirely true, but it's almost along the lines of if you say something is true enough times and loudly enough, it becomes true. So if enough people say Star Wars is great, Star Wars is great, Star Wars is great, enough people will catch wind of that, and guess what? Star Wars is now great.
Yeah, and then that feeds into the counter side, too, where you have all the people who just focus on the anger and, this sucks, I hate this, I hate this. I mean, that stuff was fine. I mean, the beginning stages of the internet with, the angry video game nerd and all, I ate that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems like everybody has issue with everything. I mean, the kid from Brooklyn's still one of my favorite internet personalities, to be honest.
Oh, man.
And all he did was complain about everything.
Is he alive?
No, he passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
There was no way that guy was long for a long, long life.
Hey, he gave us a great gift, His legacy will live on.
We should really compile, just slow-mos of all his videos and put Candle in the Wind in the background. It'd be a wonderful tribute video.
Done.
But yeah, I mean, their anger can be funny and sometimes even warranted. Mm-hmm. I think that some people do use the internet in that sense for positive things. I think the people who record police officers when they're doing something uncivil, it's ballsy and it's important, but it can be taken too far when you lose your mind and rant and rave to the masses about how you're pissed off about the gameplay in Doom.
Well, I mean, I feel like hyperbolic reactions, positive or negative, are it's like a form of entertainment unto itself, where it's almost like I don't know, it's like, say you don't have enough excitement in your own life, say you don't have the capacity, for instance me, I like a lot of things, in fact I'd say I love a lot of things, but I don't have it in me to go over the top and I don't know, gush over something or flip out and put holes in my wall if I, lose at a game or something. It's just not in my personality, but I think some people have a longing to have that themselves, but in failing to achieve it things.
It's a form of passion, I suppose, and a lot of people do, pride themselves on being passionate about things. And if anything, to be brutally honest about myself, I feel like sometimes I lack passion for things to the degree I see people. Like I don't chase things necessarily with as much vigor as I feel like I talk about them sometimes. And I think that's normal, though. I think that there's a lot of people who, especially creative people, who feel like they have good taste, feel like they have good ideas, but when it comes to actually executing, you stumble, or you get in your own head about it. And so I can see where, some people really, I guess that's part of Twitch, right? Is people like to see people's reactions, how they handle high stress things in gaming or just decisions as a whole.
Well, I mean, if I don't want to cite any statistics or anything, but I'm pretty sure the audience for Twitch streams is probably on par with the number of people who actually play games, meaning there's probably an equal number of people who don't actually even pick up a controller themselves, who just get off on watching other people do it, because the fact of the matter is a lot of games are really grindy, and I mean, some of those emotions, maybe not all of them, are kind of real, and so some of that frustration, some of those reactions are real, and not everybody has it in them to actually subject themselves to that.
Yeah, I guess every kid too remembers there was always one kid in the neighborhood who would lose their shit and break the controllers or just ruin the day essentially with their anger for a game, and that voyeuristic nature of watching games too. I can relate to that. To be honest with you, I feel like I'm close to that because there's so many great games that I see and pick up and try. I'm more a vintage gamer, I guess you'd say now. I'm cheap, so I don't play the new stuff. Everything I play is years old. And currently I'm playing Assassin's Creed 2.
Dang. Okay.
But the only reason I'm playing it is because I just these are supposed to be some of the creme de la creme of games, and so I want to experience them just to see, which I guess is the point of what we're talking about.
Actually, yeah, that does kind of tie back to where we started with this.
But that being said, as I grind through them, a lot of the time I do see there's that sense of this would be a lot easier to just watch a YouTube compilation of all this cut down into one long stream, because that's ultimately what I'm going to gain from this. But that being said, that removes from part of the fun, which is I'm unwinding after work with basic tasks that make me feel like I accomplished something in my day from going to my mundane job where I don't feel like I do anything because I've been doing it too long.
Yeah.
It frees you from boredom, but it also makes you feel like you're slowly improving something, even though there are times where I wonder if I spend more time improving my character in a video game than I do my own self. All my characters in video games speak multiple languages, it seems, or well travel, work hard, save the world, and then there's me. But no, I feel like just because it's an option, it's not always the best to just hack your way to, only seeing the best of the best. Because you are kind of eliminating some of the fun along the way. We talked earlier, we talk often about, actually, the old video store mentality, where there was once a day where you had no clue, there was no critical review or anything of all these crazy action movies starring foreign muscle men. You just picked it up because you saw it, you looked at the back, it looked interesting, and you took it home and you watched it. And that's how you discovered great things, and sometimes how you discovered complete shit.
Well, yeah.
And for most of us, also where you saw your first pair of tits. But, we don't have that as much now. It seems like, occasionally you go to a Redbox and you might pick up an obscure title, but it's so much easier just to go to Netflix, see what the top-rated programs are, and follow that. Do you think that's good, or do you think that's bad?
I don't think it's necessarily 100% good or bad. It's just my personal objection to it is more just, I guess, in a broad concept, where I don't like the idea of my tastes being shaped by a predetermined, a preset library of media, like Netflix, for instance, or Redbox even. It's you're kind of relying on these services to shape your taste, or they don't have every movie out there. The fact of the matter is Netflix's library is actually shrinking as far as I know. But
that's what I understand, yeah, as they go for more original content.
But when you have features like Netflix tracking what films you watch and tracking how you rate them, and then serving up, hey, you might like this. Like, it's kind of like having a friend, or like having your taste shaped for you. Whereas I can't say this applies to everyone, but personally, like, if you take one look at my DVD shelf, my taste in movies in particular has been shaped almost like by hand. Like, I kind of had to seek out the stuff that I wanted to see because, I don't know, I got a sense for what I liked early in life and did the legwork to pursue it.
Yeah, and you've always done a wonderful job at that, because that's the only way I've been introduced to a lot of foreign cinema, to be honest. And that's a negative on me, that, I should be more actively seeking other things, but I'm guilty of it. I follow what's big in America at the time, and, it's real easy to just say, what were the biggest movies that came out this year?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll watch those. But there's something special about being recommended a movie that you have no idea, you had no interest in, you had no clue who the actors are even, and watching it and digesting it and seeing if it resonates at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I honestly appreciate when my friends lend me movies I dislike sometimes, just because I would never have ever watched them. And, sometimes there are moments, as are with most media, sometimes it's just the slightest amount that stands out with you and ends up being more important than the actual story itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can think of countless action flicks and whatnot where there's really one scene that's so memorable that, it lets you overlook how crappy everything else is.
Well, see, I mean, that's part of what's... A lot of the movies that are special to me are special for stupid reasons like that. Like 80% of the movies I own are there because of maybe one scene or one stupid memory. But, like what we were talking about before, about, think like in terms of, like, the cream of the crop. Like, if you were to Google search like top 100 movies of all time, you'd find tons of results, and you'd find a lot of similar lists, actually.
Absolutely.
And if you were to like base your media diet off of that, that's all you'd get. And inevitably, that list is going to have a lot of movies that have ripoffs, that have that have things that are similar to them that are not as good, and consequently won't be remembered as well.
Right.
But personally, a lot of those movies, a lot of those ones that are eventually probably going to slip through the cracks, are the ones that I remember best.
So you're talking like the Die Hard effect.
Yes. I mean, Die Hard, if you break it down in terms of genre, and it is a genre unto itself now,
absolutely,
because of ripoffs and stuff, is an action movie where man is trapped in X. So,
yeah, no, you can practically hear the producers pitching the idea of just, it's Die Hard in space.
Yeah.
Die Hard on a train.
Yeah. Under Siege 2. or Die Hard on a boat. Under Siege 1. And it's those outliers that I think, like, that's kind of where I get, like, I don't know, it's like almost a point of pride for me, where it's like I appreciate the outliers. I appreciate them because they lend context to those great films. Like, to me, you can't appreciate how good Die Hard is unless you've seen all the garbage that came out as a result of Die Hard. It's like Rocky IV.
Right.
Like, Rocky IV is a great goddamn sports drama. It's like the best East versus West, communist Russia throwdown there's ever been. But the reason, like, I feel like I can appreciate Rocky IV on a greater level than a lot of other people because I've seen Robot Jocks. I've seen No Retreat, No Surrender. I've seen Ip Man 2.
Well, it's that, but and also, too, it helps you gain perspective on eras, at times, too. Not even necessarily the era portrayed in the film, but just the era of America when the movie was greenlit, or the era of, Japan when certain films were made, or, like, things that stand out that, over time are lost now, especially now when we're entering a realm where, the world, for better or worse, is at peace, other than, unfortunately, minor, skirmishes throughout. And I feel like as we're seeing more and more of that, there's less of that competitive nationalism. You see more people who just kind of view the world, citizens of the world, I guess you would call them. And so it's harder to understand that we went through a drastic changing period to get there. You know? And I think some of that gets lost if you only are focusing on the best of the best. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not necessarily paying attention to the subtle improvements. Like, again, going back to, like, video games. Like, for as many great games as I'll play, like, I also think back to all those crappy ones I rented that may have been terrible, but obviously some of their gameplay elements had to have influenced future ones.
Well, I mean, it's a very Japanese concept of refinement. Where, I mean, look at like Konami. How many retro Konami games were essentially built on the same foundation? It was like they were trying to do this one thing and do it right.
Right.
That they took so many swipes at it, and it's up for debate which time they got it, air quotes, right. But like Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time, and X-Men, and The Simpsons, they're all built on the same foundation. You can feel it in the controls. You can see it in the graphics. And Captain Bucky O'Hare and Castlevania 3. It has the, single-player side-scrolling platformer where you can select from multiple people at any given time. Hell, even the first Ninja Turtles game had that, but, that was garbage.
Yeah, terrible. But yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating because, like, I guess what I'm realizing as we're having this discussion is, like, there's a very good chance that, like, we may see a Dolph Lundgren PhD candidate at some point. Just because, like, these are all little elements that are going to be lost, like, as more and more things get streamlined, through technology, where, that kind of leaves guys like you and me as outliers who have a lot of useless information about a lot of random things, but no real expertise.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say, like, I definitely miss the era before the internet because I did enjoy discourse and argument, like, at a time when nobody really knew who was right or wrong, and where sometimes people would perpetuate lies. Well, sometimes people would perpetuate, stupid concepts that ended up being true that they didn't mean, that they were just talking out of their ass. Like, there was just, I mean, we were raised with that. Our father told us all sorts of garbage, and actually 90% of the time it was very accurate. Well, he just had his own memory or twist on it. That
I think it was like unique. A survival tactic for Dad, or it's like, he calls it his built-in bullshit detector. And I think, it goes both ways. It's like you have to be able to know when someone's conning you, and you also have to be able to know how to con people. It's, everybody's out to get everybody. But it's funny you mentioned that, though, because it's like, I feel like that schoolyard, argument, like, debate that, eventually erupts in violence for no fucking reason. Like, I feel like that's gone because people are more prone to check themselves.
Yeah.
Because the ever-present fact checker of Wikipedia exists. Because they know if they're wrong, inevitably somebody's going to call them on their bullshit. So it makes people, I don't know, less prone to go balls out and argue points that they genuinely do not know are true or not.
Do you think in terms of social court, do you think it's fair to use your phone in an argument of this nature?
Absolutely not. That is some bullshit. Like,
and see, that's where I agree with you, and I think that's a sign of us getting older because, now everything you just said previously, people checking themselves is true.
Yeah.
Because people are getting smarter and smarter about how they use social media. Mm-hmm. You're seeing less and less instances of people, pressing send and then instantly regretting it because people have seen how much of a negative impact that can have on your life.
Well, I mean, the phrase I used the other day was it's like living a curated life. It's like you have that option now where you can sit back, you can think on your actions before you make them. You can have this digital persona that's tailored, that's sculpted, that's molded to fit a certain character and present itself in a certain way because you have that ability to fact check and do all that stuff before you open your mouth.
Well, I think too a lot of it is look, everybody wants to fit in.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Yeah.
And the question is, like, who do you want to fit in with? Mm-hmm. And I feel like now it can be a lot broader because of computing and whatnot, it's a lot easier to look at people's interests and know what you can discuss and, not have a lot of depth to your conversation. But in a way that feels better because you don't run the risk of ever perturbing anybody. Because if all you ever talk about is Star Wars and, whatever show you're watching on Netflix, House of Cards or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to offend anybody because offending people sucks. That's why so many of us try to just blend in, myself included. I don't like to be, overly argumentative or to tell people the way it is.
Yeah, neither do I.
But I certainly have my opinions.
Yeah.
And that's honestly why we sit in front of this microphone and yell at each other. It's just because it's a dumping ground for all that. It's important to get that out.
I mean, the analogy I've used before is, of course, in boxing terms, because that seems to be all I fucking know anymore. But it's the equivalent of putting your guard down. It's the equivalent to going for broke and going for a big haymaker, swinging for the fences. It's if you do that, ultimately you're leaving yourself open to counter.
Absolutely.
So if you let your guard down, if you stop the small talk, if you drop the act, it leaves you open. And a lot of people are really, really cautious about doing that.
You think it's almost become more so that nowadays, or you think people have always been that way? It's just you found different avenues to do it in?
Well, I think bullshitting has always existed. Like, I feel like that's like a part of, especially like male bonding. I can't speak to the opposite sex, but I think bullshitting it's a feeling out process. You test the waters, you see what you can get away with, you see where the other person's at in terms of their opinion, and then you go from there. But I don't think it's changed that much. I think it's just always going to be there. It's just,
I think it'll always be there. The only reason I ask is just because at times, I think it's on my mind only 100% because of that stupid video game I'm playing. But it does kind of feel like with technology and just the world where it's at, where, look, nothing's perfect. We have many, many generations before we'll get to a place like that. But it does seem like people are starting to put the footholds in place to make a better world, make a better future for humanity as a whole. And in that sense, it almost feels like this is a modern day renaissance in that now that things are more resolved in that area, we can focus on more arts, we can focus more on creativity, we can focus more, we can share stupid thoughts we're having in your kitchen right now and spread them to the masses because we have time, we have that ability. We don't need to focus as much attention even on our social lives because we can look online every day and say we have 100 people that are technically our friend that you can easily stay acquainted with just as long as you take the time to send them a message or click the thumbs up icon or go about that route.
Well, I don't want to get into it on this particular podcast or anything, but I feel like that's also the cause for a lot of anxiety among us good middle class folks that are entitled to the privilege of leisure time and stuff like that. Is when you open every door, the chances of you going through any one of them drops dramatically. And it's like a freezing effect where you're overwhelmed with your privilege. Where I have literally every opportunity available to me, as far as a middle class income can take me, I guess. And
no, but you don't have to fear being homeless. You don't have to fear, putting food on the table.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to live within a certain means, of course. You're not, neither of us are raking it in, but but you don't have to fear things like past generations did. You get to just get up, go to work, come home, TV, bed, And so, yeah, and I don't know. See, to me personally, it feeds right into it where it's in that sense, people are even scared when it comes to their entertainment of not absorbing all the stuff they need to within a lifetime for fear that they will miss out on something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's ultimately where it comes from, is that's why you get these, these media properties or whatever, they reach an elevated status where it's this is absolutely essential. It's because of that concept of, your limited longevity, I guess, where it's I don't need to waste my time with these outliers and, the flotsam, all the garbage out there because, the internet says this is good, my friends say this is good, no one has anything to say about that other crap, so this is what I'll watch.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know. I think it's fascinating because we're touching on so many things that really plague me. Because obviously, like, you know, I grew up in a very, for the most part, very stable environment. Very middle class, very safe, you know. And being told that I was decent enough at things like writing and being attracted to media such as movies and TV and dreaming about it. Went to college to pursue it, you know, like many people in our age range did. Didn't feel like I learned anything. You know, went out into the workforce, found the job that pays me the most money for my skill set, and constantly feeling like this is something I need to attack and feeling terrified of doing so. And I think so much of it is everything we're talking about, just in the sense that I feel like it's so overwhelming, and the people who don't try to go that route will stand back and tell you, but it's so much easier now. There's so much more access. It's so much easier. You can just go on YouTube. Like, it's not like before where you had to know the right people and network and all that. And in that sense, that, to be fair, that's true. But at the same time, you're competing with so many masses of ideas that it's paralyzing to the point where why don't I just sit back and see the best of the best? So that way I get the most out of it without having to run the risk of realizing maybe I'm not that great.
Well, I mean, taking it to the next level. I mean, for me, I mean, my path has been essentially the same. I'm just a little bit younger. For me, it's paralyzing almost, where because there's so much content out there, because there's so many people who have the same opportunities as I do. I mean, all we did here was grab a Yeti microphone and a computer, and now we have a podcast. It's okay.
And that's literally the extent of it. It's not like there's no professionalism here.
Yeah, but I mean, when I think about how much of this crap is being put out there every day, I mean, the more dour parts of my brain go down that dark path and think, why even bother? Because there's probably someone out there saying and thinking the same thing as me, probably just better and with better production values.
But I think that's inherently where what both of us need to overcome.
Well, absolutely.
Is that there is somebody out there thinking it. There is somebody probably more talented.
There is.
But just because that's the case, sometimes those people need influence too. Sometimes one stupid thought you have can actually lead to that person maybe stepping up and really completing the work. It's a group effort in a lot of times. I don't think there's anybody. History likes to make it sound like individuals molded things, but there are many, many other people along the lines.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that fear is now, that so many of those other people, you know, we used to have a social order, we used to have caste systems, things like that, and you could argue that stuff still exists. But really what all this stuff is supposed to allow for us is to be individuals, you know, to feel like you matter beyond just, I go to work every day, you know, I come home, TV, bed, you know, or heaven forbid, losing your mind and becoming the guy who, you know, lives in a shack, poops in an outhouse, lives off the grid, you know.
Well, I mean, to bring it back to boxing, I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson, universally regarded as, you know, best of all time, but he wouldn't have been the best of all time had he not run afoul of Carmen Basilio or Jake LaMotta or Gene Fulmer. And all of those guys had fans, were appreciated, are in the Hall of Fame. Great people all in their own right. And they're, you know, all in the same profession. It's the outliers that we were talking about. It's like there's no reason not to go for it. And I'm very slowly, very, very slowly learning that inaction is probably the biggest sin you can commit, I guess. Is if you can, you should. Even if you do it crappily. Doing is better than not.
Well, and that's really the only reason I like to record these conversations is honestly, like, I'd like to look back on this era of my life and just understand it. Because there's a very distinct possibility I'm just going to be another worker guy who raises a family and, you know, has to shelve certain dreams or whatever. I think that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy into that whole, like, you need to chase them your whole life, because I think that real life is admitting certain things just can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I still want the memory of, this was something important to me at one time. I just never pursued it fully or had the talent to, admittedly but it's that hang up. And I feel like so many of us get down ourselves for inactivity, but sometimes there's different varying levels of inactivity, if that makes sense. What I'll say is, like, for instance, like, I might sit around all night and watch a movie or play that stupid Assassin's Creed game that's, 10 years old. But at the very least, I'm thinking about, like, why is this important? Like, does this matter in any level? Like, I'll watch a movie and actually, like, take things from it. Like, I like the way this character was written, and ultimately that can be useful.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm not every day sitting plugged into the computer and trying to type something out doesn't necessarily mean I need to beat myself up, because I know I do that, and I'm sure you do too.
I do.
But I do think that there is something to be said just for taking that time to even dare to dream, like, as cheesy as that sounds.
No, it's another thing, another lesson I've only begun to learn recently is that, all these, like, really crappy creative impulses I have, as crappy as they are, I know people who don't even have crappy ideas, like, and don't even have the will to, do much of anything outside of, up, work, home, TV, bed.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And for a lot of those people, like, I think our mom's kind of one of those where she just wants to watch the top-rated stuff because, it's just easier. Like, she doesn't want to have... You watch entertainment, for a lot of people, it's to turn your mind off.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to have to think deeply on things. You don't want to analyze characters and view it through the lens of how is this compared to the previous film. You just want to literally sit on your butt and relax. And I think that's the issue, is it's impossible for me to feel like I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to chase some dream that's 100% in my head, because it's constantly running in a cycle, and even when I'm sitting down, I feel guilty for it. But that's also something you're going to find as you're getting older. Like, the older you get, you don't get to relax. There's literally something that needs to be done every second of every day. It's just a matter of whether or not you try. It's not even try, it's just a matter of, like, yard work, for instance. And you start realizing that's on you, and if you don't do it, you're going to look like an asshole to the rest of the neighborhood. I mean, little things like that start adding up, and it makes me feel a little less guilty for actually not sitting down every chance I can get and trying to read or write or do whatever. So, I mean, I guess ultimately at the end, I get why these sites exist. I get why that stuff's present. I see the point of it. But I also am so grateful that at least we got to experience an era before then, to where we could really digest so many goofy things that future generations aren't even going to remember. Because, I mean, let's face it, like, Chuck Norris became a thing again, but do you really think he's going to have staying power in the future?
I've always maintained, actually, that Steven Seagal should have gotten his acclaim. Like, all those stupid Chuck Norris memes, all those, Chuck Norris facts or whatever, those belong to Steven Seagal.
All right.
Mic drop.
I can't argue with you there. I will say he's playing Dirty Pool now. I don't know if you've seen the cover for his latest film, but they cast Rob Van Dam in it.
What?
But next to where it says Seagal, it says Seagal and Van Dam.
Oh, Dirty Pool, old man. Dirty Pool.
So, I mean, Seagal gets knocked down a few pegs for that in my book, But yeah, I mean, Seagal...
We'll talk about him another day.
Yeah, Seagal's a topic for a whole nother podcast. In the meantime, it's been great sitting down and chatting with you. And yeah, we're getting old, but let's just keep at it and see what happens. That's all we can do, I guess.
All right, this has been Trevor Hart.
And Matt Hart.
And a salute to Arrogance. Have a good night.